Jason and Dr. Lee here from Elevate Chiropractic and Rehab. Today we're going to go over a lunge decompression pose and point out all of the cues that you should be focusing on when you're doing this at home. Lunge decompression is part of the foundation training series, and it's an excellent exercise. It adds a little bit more dynamic stress to the lower extremity as we go into a lunge stance. So Lee, let's first start getting set up on this. We're going to have you facing this way, about like that. And your feet are going to be hip width apart. Good, so it's important to focus on the width of the legs on this, because if they're too narrow, it's going to give you a lot less stability when you go into the pose. So just slide this foot straight back a foot and a half. I want your toe and this toe and your opposite heel to be about 12 to 18 inches apart. So I'm going to bring this back even slightly further, a little bit further right there. Good. Okay, now straighten both those legs for me. So as getting set up in this position, you start with the legs straight, and then I just want you softening each leg a little bit. So we've just got a little bend in each knee, and the bend should be equal. Pull this heel off the ground for me. Good. And the heel is going to be in line with the pinky toe, so I'm going to have you bring that out. So each foot is slightly internally rotated, almost like you're making the shape of a pie, and you should feel an internal rotation in the hip on that. Okay? Now we're really going to activate the lower extremity as we scissor those legs together. So you're pulling this toe into the ground, pretending like someone's trying to pull that foot out from underneath you, and you're not going to let them, so you'll feel that activation in that hip flexor all the way up into that psoas. Same thing's happening on the opposite side. Pulling that leg straight down into the ground, pretending like there's a scale underneath your foot, and you're trying to register as much weight onto that scale as possible, pulling, scissoring those legs towards each other. Okay? So keep that muscle activation. That muscle activation itself should be challenging. Like if he just stayed in this position and just focused on that, he would get tired. Are you feeling that already, Lee?
Absolutely.
All right, good. Okay, next we're going to move on to the decompressive breath aspect of the pose. So decompressive breathing, like we've done in all of our other foundation training poses, we're focusing on lengthening the spine, expanding and elevating the rib cage, right? So go ahead, Lee, let's take your measuring sticks, your pinky and your thumb, kind of like a hang loose sign. You're going to touch the ASIS here, this bony part of your pelvis, and your ribs here. And this gives you a good indication of what's happening with your chest and what's happening with your spine. Now let's take a super deep breath in. When we breathe in, we're trying to elevate that rib cage. We're trying to expand that rib cage. You should feel that space between the pinky and the thumb increasing, right? Good, now hold that breath there for me. We want to make sure the back's not extending. We're lengthening the back and the front simultaneously as we elevate those ribs, okay? You're reaching your head towards the ceiling, trying to create as much length through the spine as possible. On the exhale, we're focusing mostly on contracting all these muscles through here, primarily that transverse abdominis muscle that runs this way, and pulling that belly button towards the spine as far as we can. I like to cue my patients to think that they're like trying to push their organs out of their stomach up into their chest. On the exhale, just squeezing as hard as they can through there. Okay. So again, deep breath in, 5-second breath in. Good. And 5-second exhale. The breaths are very slow and controlled, pulling that belly in on the exhale. Very good. Now, let's take it a step further. We're going to bring our fingertips together. Elbows are a little bit bent. We're activating the arms towards each other, pretending that we're creating a sphere of tension between the fingertips, pretending like we're holding an imaginary ball that's trying to escape. If I try to pull here, he's got about 10 pounds of force there. Very good. Now, again, take a deep breath in. Arms going to come up overhead as we're reaching, feeling that length through that frontal chain there. Deep breath in. Good. Exhale. Pulling that belly in. Notice how he's doing a really good job maintaining this nice spinal posture here. He's not extending, he's not bending backwards. He's just lengthening his spine through there. Good. And his feet are maintaining that scissoring. He's still pulling really strong through there. Now if we want to open up a little bit more through this hip flexor and this psoas, which are muscles that often get tight, we can simply bend slightly away from that back leg. Good. Not too far. You only need to think about moving the hands about 6 to 12 inches away from center line. So right where he's at right now is very good. And one thing I want to make sure of is that we're not over-activating the traps up here. So you should feel some activation of your lats, kind of depressing your shoulders through this. It's counterintuitive because you're wanting to lengthen as much as possible, but we don't want to overuse those traps because we use those too much on a daily basis anyways. Good. Go ahead and bring your hands back to neutral and step forward with your back leg. And that is the lunge decompression. Good job, Lee.